Good evening. It is time for today's tax talk. I'm your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. It is Wednesday, August 24th, the year of our Lord 2022. And the IRS has come out with some news today, just a couple hours ago, and talking about giving some tax relief, or penalty relief, I should say, to some taxpayers. That's what we're going to talk about today. Won't you join us? Thanks so much again for joining us here on today's Tax Talk. As I mentioned, the IRS has announced that they're giving some relief to taxpayers who missed filing their tax returns. They say because of COVID. I just have to think that they're getting a lot of bad press and they're trying to make something up. I don't think it does that myself. I don't know how many people it's going to. They say, well, let's read this. The story, and there's a couple stories, and I'll read the release from the IRS also. Some of the release, because some of the IRS releases can get dry, and it's government stuff, by the way, after all. So let us turn to that. So here's the story. IRS to refund 1.6 million people who missed tax filing deadlines. The Internal Revenue Service is sending refunds to more than 1 million Americans who filed their taxes late in the early days of COVID-19 pandemic. Typically, taxpayers who file returns late without an extension can expect to pay penalties of up to 25% of the amount of tax they owe. For 2019 and 2020, however, the agency is suspending penalties for people who filed late. Taxpayers who already paid the fine will automatically receive refunds, the IRS said Wednesday. More than 1.6 million taxpayers are set to receive refunds or credits totaling $1.2 billion, an average of $750 per person, although some may get more and some less. To qualify for late penalty forgiveness, individual tax returns must be filed by September 20th, 2022. Taxpayers don't need to do anything, the IRS said. People who have been fined but not yet paid the penalty will be erased, while those who already paid the penalty will get a refund or credit. Most of the refunds will be delivered by the end of September, according to the agency. The effort is a move to help struggling taxpayers affected by COVID-19 pandemic, according to the IRS. The plan could also help the agency, which is itself struggling to dig out of a massive backlog of unprocessed tax returns. The pandemic has an unprecedented effect on the tax agency, the IRS said in a notice, highlighting the agency's role in distributing federal stimulus payments and taking other steps to help taxpayers weather the pandemic. Dropping late filing fee penalties could also benefit the IRS by helping the agency focus on whittling down its backlog of tax paperwork and returning to normal for the 2023 tax year. Well, I hope that that's true, that they can. Here's the IRS news press release. Again, dated today, August 24th, 2022. To help struggling, and a lot of this is going to be repetition, but I'm going to do it anyway. To help struggling taxpayers affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, the Internal Revenue Service today issued Notice 2022-36. And here is 2022-36 and the notice that they put out. Again, this is what I could read. It gets very, they talk about. Let's see how much time we have at the end here. We'll see how we go here. The IRS is also taking an additional step to help those who paid these penalties already. Nearly 1.6 million taxpayers will automatically receive more than $1.2 billion in refunds or credits. Many of these payments will be completed by the end of September. Besides providing relief to both individuals and businesses impacted by the pandemic, these This step is designed to allow the IRS to focus its resources on processing backlog tax returns and taxpayer correspondence to help return to normal operations for the 2023 filing season. Throughout the pandemic, the IRS has worked hard to support the nation and provide relief to people in many different ways, said IRS Commissioner Rettig. He likes to be called Chuck. I call him Charles. The penalty relief issued today is yet another way the agency is supporting people during this unprecedented time. This penalty relief will be automatic for people or businesses who qualify. There's no need to call because they won't answer the call anyway. So don't call. The relief applies to the failure to file penalty. The penalty is typically assessed at a rate of 5% per month and up to 25% of unpaid tax when the federal income tax return is filed late. This relief applies to forms in both the Form 1040 and 1120 series, as well as others listed in Notice 2236, posted today on irs.gov. To qualify for this relief, any eligible income tax return must be filed on or before September 30th, 2022. In addition, the IRS is providing penalty relief to banks, employers, and other businesses required to file various information returns, such as those in the 1099 series. To qualify for relief, the notice states that eligible 2019 returns must have been filed by August 1st, 2020, and eligible 2020 returns must be filed by August 1st, 2021. Because both of these deadlines fell on a weekend, a 2019 return will still be considered timely for purposes of relief provided under the notice if it was filed by August 3rd, 2020, and the 2020 return will be considered timely for purposes of relief provided under the notice if it was filed by August 2nd, 2021. The notice provides details on the information returns that are eligible for relief. The notice also provides details on relief for filers of various international information returns, such as those reporting transactions with foreign trusts, receipts of foreign gifts, and ownership interests in foreign corporations. To qualify for this relief, any eligible tax return must be filed on or before September 30th, 2022. Relief is automatic. Most of the $1.2 billion in refunds delivered to eligible taxpayers by next month. Penalty relief is automatic. This means the eligible taxpayers need not apply for it. If already assessed, penalties will be abated. If already paid, the taxpayer will receive a credit or refund. As a result, nearly 1.6 million taxpayers who already paid the penalty are receiving refunds totaling more than $1.2 billion. More eligible taxpayers will receive their refunds by the end of September. Penalty relief is not available in some situations, such as when a fraudulent return was filed, where the penalties are part of an accepted offer in compromise or a closing agreement, or where the penalties were finally determined by a court. This relief is limited to penalties that the notice specifically states are eligible for relief. Other penalties, such as failure to pay penalty, are not eligible. But for these ineligible penalties, taxpayer may use existing penalty relief procedures, such as applying for relief under the reasonable cause criteria or the first-time abatement program. Penalty relief is a complex issue for the IRS to administer, Rettig said. We've been working on this initiative for months, following concerns we've heard from taxpayers, the tax community, and others, including Congress. This is another major step to help taxpayers, and we encourage those affected by this review the guidelines. Okay, so this is the notice. We'll review it a little bit. I don't think I would read the whole thing, but this notice provides relief for certain taxpayers from certain failure to file penalties and certain international information return penalties with respect to tax returns for taxable years 2019 and 2020. They are filed on or before September 30th, 2022. This notice also provides relief from certain information return penalties with respect to taxable year 2019 returns that were filed on or before August 1st, 2020, and with respect to taxable year 2020 returns that were filed on or before August 1st, 2021. The relevant penalties will be waived or, to the extent previously assessed, abated, refunded, or credited as described in Section 3A of this notice. Situations where penalty relief does not apply are described in 3B of this notice. And then it talks about section codes, generally imposes addition to tax for failure to file, a tax return that is required under the authority of subchapter A of Chapter 61 of the code, including certain income tax returns. Section 6031 38 generally imposes a penalty for failure of certain United States persons to furnish certain information with respect to controlled foreign corporation or controlled foreign partnership that the person owns. Section 6038A D, small letter D, imposes a penalty on a 25% foreign-owned domestic corporation. Okay, so you see that it gets really into the weeds of the statutes. They keep going on. Each one is, again, it gets more detail with the statute. The IRS will not impose the penalties listed in 3A 1 through 4 of this notice with respect to specified tax returns for taxable years 2019 and 2020 that are filed on or before September 30th, 2022. The penalties listed in Section 3A of this notice will be automatically abated, refunded, or credited as appropriate without any need for taxpayers to request this relief. Additions to tax under 6651A1 for failure to file the following income tax returns: Form 1040, Form 1041, Form 1120, Form 1066, Form 990. Certain penalties under sections for failure to timely file the following IRS information returns. Penalty systematically assessed when Form 5471. Information return of U.S. persons with respect to certain foreign corporations. Penalties assessed by campus assessment. So you get the gist of it. It goes on and on and on. There's some exceptions. It's like reading a statute, right? It becomes sometimes very difficult to get to the bottom of it or understand it as someone just reads it to you. Something that you have to study sometimes, and we often do. So that's what's happening. To me, and this is really where our government goes wrong, in my opinion. Now, again, I'm all for, penalty abatements and all of that. But what it comes down to is those who fight, went out of their way, did the right thing, didn't let COVID stop them, filed on time, they don't get anything. It's kind of with the student loans, right? If you didn't get any student loans, or your parents paid, or you paid, I was on the pay-as-you-go program myself when I went to college. So if you go to college and you pay yourself and you don't have any loans, well, you don't get any relief. Only the people who borrowed money are getting the relief and haven't paid it back. They're getting relief. If you borrowed money and paid it back, you're not getting relief. So and that's kind of what's happening here. If I did the right thing and I didn't get a penalty, you didn't file on time, you don't get a penalty either. Again, I understand it, but it does kind of rub some people the wrong way, because it always seems like our government is bending over backwards for those who don't comply, and those who do comply, it's just expected of you, and you get nothing. Now, maybe you shouldn't expect anything for complying, but again, it does kind of rub people the wrong way when they do everything the way they're supposed to, and those who don't, they get benefits. It's like there's no penalty, and in this case, there isn't a penalty because they're being waived. So that's it. So that's where we are here. And I can understand the frustration. I still want to see the abatement. I think 2 years later for COVID is a long time to give someone penalty free for not filing their tax returns. And it's, penalty. The relief is 25% of. It could go up to 25% of whatever you owed, and it could be a sizable amount of money. So I understand it. So again, thanks so much for joining us here today. I appreciate you taking the time. Remember, I'm always going to ask you to like and subscribe to this channel. We handle daily tax news. Who else is doing that? Nobody that I know. And remember, tax news is really the core of all news. How does the government get your money, and how do they spend it? So that's all tax news, and this is where you can get it. So we ask you to like and subscribe so we can get this information out to those who need it. And we need your help to do it. So thank you so much for helping us. And remember, if you have IRS problems, right? There's 3 types of IRS problems that we help people with. The first is if you owe the IRS money. Do you owe the IRS any money? You know if you do, and you need help, you should probably give us a call. The second is people who haven't filed their tax returns. That's a problem, and we can help you file your tax returns and get in compliance. The third is overpaying on your taxes. I think the third problem is probably the most widespread and also the most unaddressed, because people just file their tax returns and think, hey, there's nothing I can do. But tax planning, if your income is such level, then tax planning can be a real big help for you to save money. You should not overpay your taxes. Only pay, as the IRS would tell you, your fair share. Don't overpay. Don't underpay. Pay your fair share. And there's a whole book called the IRS Code that has things in there that you might not be familiar with, but tax attorneys may be familiar with it. And so they help you with tax planning. And that's what we help people do. So thanks so much for joining us. Remember, go to freeirsbook.com. Get your free copy of Deal with Your IRS Problem today. Go to freeirsbook.com. We're going to ask you to pay a small handling fee. But other than that, the book is free. And all of the bonuses that go along with the book are free. So thanks so much for joining us here today. We appreciate you taking the time. We'll be back here tomorrow at about 7 o'clock or 7:30, somewhere in there. So join us, won't you? We'll see you tomorrow. Out.